Hello, and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. After this past week, copious amounts of booze is required as a Broncos fan because while I thought we were going to lose to the Bears, we actually almost did it. And
I'm almost out.
That's we'll just say that's a problem in and of itself. Now, Captain, in fairness, your Raiders haven't done particularly well this season either in terms of some of the struggles they've had.
Well, you know what? Okay, yeah, the record is what it is, but
Like I said, I'm bringing you down with me.
yeah, I'm gonna.
Alex, again, in fairness, the Chargers are right with the Broncos pretty much as well. So let's just call a duck and just kind of say that there's one team again in this division that is looking competitive, and the rest of us have some work to do, generally speaking. But either way, we have a lot on the go for tonight's show. We thank everyone for joining us live from all of the different avenues by which you have found us. A few quick orders of business before we start things off. Over to my left on the screen here, or right, depending on which way you're looking at things, is Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense podcast. Alex, you nailed the diagonal point. Good for you.
First time, too.
Yeah.
First time out.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I think that deserves about a
I had to think about
5 minute standing ovation. You got the drop, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with the applause.
The applause. There you go. Come
Thanks,
on.
guys. Thank you.
He'd like to thank the family of Smugs.
Yeah.
Smug
But anyway,
Nation, stand up.
Yeah.
No,
We're
you know
smugging.
what? I think that would probably be the only nation,
We big
smug
smugging.
nation, that I won't be as pissed off about because it doesn't exist anyway. But smug nation saying it, I won't get as really irate and just totally vehemently nasty.
Right. Lockdown Defense with Coach Defense as the primary host on the channel, combination of NBA and NFL. Staples Show you can find on Tuesdays, except for this past Tuesday.
Was that a pun, a Staples Show, considering that his Lakers play in the Staples Center? I'm just saying,
It's
I'm
not the
on
Staples
tonight.
Center anymore.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm
It will
on
forever-
tonight.
It will be forever. It will be the Staples Center. I would never call it that other name. I promise you that.
It's like NFT Bank Central Arena now.
No, it's Staples Center, the house that Kobe built. Get it right.
That's right. And as long as it ain't FTX Center, because then you have to talk about a Jewish kid with really wild hair that needs to be, thrown a key out.
And
That was out there.
No, I'm just saying, so's his hair.
Who is Pepe Silvia? Now that we're on conspiracies here.
But and then down below here is Alex Gibbons of the Arrowhead Addict. You can catch his articles live online, as well as at some point we're gonna have a YouTube channel, right?
I just I got it.
Someday.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
4 buttons.
Could be, who knows? Only just out of reach on a block on a beach under a tree.
Who knows?
Someday he'll have his own show. You can go blow all you Smug Nation folks.
I might have to cut that.
That was
Cap
a
have
variation of
What
something.
did Cap have to eat today? That's
No.
what I want to know.
I had a Wendy's nacho double nacho
That was like
burger.
gave me some like Reading Rainbow vibes.
That sounded like some what is that the unfluffed Arby's?
Yeah.
Actually, if I had the money to afford it, I'd go get some unfluffed Arby's. But can't do it. No Monet. I have that French disease, no Monet.
Oh.
But anyways, we have the real Alex Gibbons here from the Arrowhead Addict, and Captain Jack, the legit Salty Pirate. You can catch him live on TV.
He made. Oh, you were dead. You're 1 for 2, so at least you're 500. You're better than anybody else in the division.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got here and we got there. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Boom.
Anyways,
Boom.
and for those of you who don't know, I am Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. You can catch me on various shows on the network. However, staple is obviously the Wild Wild West podcast here on the network. As you can tell, I am both a Canadian and a Broncos fan, which no, it's not an oxymoron nor a mistake. It is certainly rare.
That deserves a drink.
Oh no, I'm sober as all hell. But anyways,
But for how long?
we're gonna go ahead.
Yeah,
We're gonna go
for
ahead and
now.
move on. Captain, I had some American beer, which is great water, up here for Canada.
Great water. Great water.
Because we believe in alcohol content in our stuff because it's freaking cold here in the winter and we need to stay warm.
That's why I don't drink American beer. It's
exactly.
It's just water.
Exactly. Like 3 and 4% is just ridiculous. But anywho, as we move on, very interesting week this week with some varied outcomes. Some we expected, some we didn't. Some plays we expected, and some we didn't. I'm going to throw over to you, Coach. Just given the fact that we want to make sure the Chargers get their due because you have a bye week in week 5 coming up. So there's going to be more of just your commentary on our teams as opposed to your own coming up this week. Your thoughts on the Chargers game this past weekend?
Lot to unpack.
Leave me some.
Okay.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. I mean, it's what can you say? It's really, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, so I'm not going to keep harping on it's the coaching train. But the takeaways I had from that game were very interesting. To have such a illustrious first half and have such a mediocre second half is on brand for Joe Lombardi's offense, not so much Kellen Moore. So I was very shocked at that. And kudos to the Raiders. I think that's probably the best defense they played all year. In
Second
regards
half.
to how they, now y'all played good defense. I mean, and I'll get into why in a second. But I think y'all played solid defense throughout the game. I really believe that. Holistically, though, I really believe. I mean, again, that goes back to my comments about last week that you can throw the records out the window. We always play each other tough. It doesn't matter who's winning, who's losing, who's good, who's not. It's always going to be a tough game. It's just a different atmosphere when it comes to Chargers and Raiders. Like I said, the first half was pretty good and favorable for the Chargers, and the second half was literally a dogfight. I mean, we're talking Top Gun, Maverick Goose, Iceman, and everybody included. We
haven't had a movie references in a while, so good. Thanks for dropping that. There you go.
No problem. Not a problem. So, again, I really think that a lot of things need to be cleaned up when it comes down to the Chargers overall 4 quarters worth of football. Just to start there. Because if you look at the numbers, we had 12 drives. We had 1 turnover on down, 4 punts. We had an interception. We had 4 penalties for 34 yards, and we had 37 runs and 24 passes, which you would think that it would be the opposite of that. But I think the idea of Mike Williams not being there was a factor. It looks as if they were trying to figure them things out on the fly and how things were going to work in game when it comes down to Mike not being there, and not having that big 6'4", 6'5", contested ball catching wide receiver out there. So they did a really good job on Keenan Allen, keeping him corralled for the most of it. He had that 1 touchdown on the short field, but I think that overall, I think they did a pretty good job on him. And again, we still have a lack of running game. I think that's a very glaring need. And it just really may boil down to the idea that Austin Eckler is that's sorely missed. I think we're really going to see, and it's a bad timing, honestly, because we have to face the Cowboys defense after the bye. But I think we might see a little bit of a different, I guess you can say, level of offense once he's back in the lineup. But Josh Kelly, fantasy and fandom has disappointed me the last 3 weeks, and it's not even funny. So, I told one of my coworkers, I said, he's dead to me. I dropped him. I can't subscribe anymore. But, so the biggest thing for me is the lack of offense second half. I think, we did pretty well on generating points off of sacks and getting the Raiders off the field and punts and getting short fields in the first half. I did like the idea that they used Darius Davis in the backfield a little bit to utilize his speed and elusiveness, so that was good. They just didn't do enough of it. Still getting up third and longs. I mean, we're talking 3rd and 10 or longer, and they're still giving those up. That's a big problem. Having costly penalties and when it comes down to sustaining drives for the opponent. You have them in 3rd and long, or you have them in 2nd and long. You get them backed up, and you have a silly pass interference call, silly holding penalty, silly face mask penalty. I mean, you name it. I mean, there's a myriad of penalties that they commit. They always seem to give the team life. That's a problem. And that just boils down to mental errors. Just not being locked in and being disciplined when the time calls for it, and allows for people to stay on the field, stay in drives, get points when they shouldn't. That was a big issue too, and of course the big elephant in the room in the same regard is the idea of going forward and for 4th down in your own territory again and not getting it. Like it's one of those things where if you were the Eagles and you had the what do they call it, the Philly push or whatever they call it, I don't know, they got so many names for it. Yeah, Philly special. We know that. No, that's Philly special. Different
the
play.
tush.
No, the Phillies. Yeah, it's a tush push. It's not a Philly special.
I heard Rich Eisen say they don't want to call it a tush push. It's called something else. But I digress. But you guys, everybody know what I mean. The fact that they have that play and it's pretty much automatic, but not everybody else runs that play to its success rate. So again, deep in your own territory, giving the Raiders or any opponent that we face in the short field when the game is on the line, again, comes down to decision making. Getting to the idea of Asante Samuel not running that interception back. That's another problem I had. He said Brandon Staley told him to get down when he could have. He run the 4.40, sir. Please, the quarterback and the lineman weren't going to catch him. I mean, let's just be honest about it. If you run that back, even if he runs it back into field goal range, it's a 2-score game. Why not at least try to get yourself better field position? Even if you didn't move the ball after that, you would push them back further in a punt versus it being in our own territory. When you make him literally kneel the ball at like the 5 or 10 yard line, just ridiculous. So I mean, again, that's the biggest thing. I mean, shouts out to Khalil Mack for having 6 sacks. I'm definitely not going to underscore that or sully that because he had a massive performance. He seems to like to play against the Raiders. I mean, we all know that.
Baby.
I felt like although it wasn't the initial 4, he felt like he kind of channeled that 4 jersey and saw it on O'Connell's back and got motivated because he was in O'Connell's business the whole game. So so I mean, again, with no Joey Bosa, Thule still being productive, Khalil being the normal and person that we expect him to be was a sight for sore eyes. So I mean, overall, I mean, again, it's some good and some bad, and I think that the bad is a lot of it is self-inflicted, and it's. I think I heard a quote one of the sports analysts say that the Chargers make everything hard, even trying to go for it on 4th and 1 and make everything difficult. Like it's just to make everything difficult in life. That's just who they are.
Or as the rest of us say, the Chargers are going to charge her.
Well, yeah, that's the saying too. So. Again, I mean, you can really make things a lot easier on yourself. They just find a way to make it difficult. I think we all know people in our lives like that, and that's what the Chargers' MO is. Now, I don't know if that's the MO or the theme of the coaching staff in the front office, or it's just this group of players. But one way or the other, if we're going to have something simple, we're likely going to complicate it. So that's really what it boils down to. I think that. Sticking around for this bye week, and hopefully, Justin's hand isn't, ridiculously, bad. Thankfully, he's on his non-throwing hand, so that doesn't affect that aspect of it. But if he can't take snaps on the center and things of that nature, that's going to be an issue because you can scheme and play him a certain way that teams are going to key on. Because then your offense shrinks when you can't go on the center. Obviously, it changes your run game, changes your pass game, all that kind of stuff. And then, again, have to go against that vaunted Dallas defense coming out of the bye. And we're really going to get tested. So we'll see how much he progresses in rehab and how quickly that hand heals. He's a young guy. Hopefully it heals enough where he can feel like he can endure the idea of taking snaps on the center. So that's a limit our offense. But, I mean, some things I'm okay with and some things I'm not. And I think the biggest, most glaring issue is that face this being such a tight game with a backup quarterback should be an indictment on the Chargers' inability to put teams the way that they should. And it should be, noted that the Raiders hung in. They hung in throughout the whole game, despite giving up 6 sacks, despite, being down multiple scores at one point. They hung in, and they ran the ball. They had to a large success rate in the second half. And like I said, they made it a game, and then again, I give O'Connell a lot of credit because he hung in there. I mean, most people, like if you were Sam Darnold, for instance, you'd probably be seeing ghosts after being sacked 6 times. And he was a fighter. So I give him a lot of credit in that respect too. So, overall, all in all, I think it was a good game. I mean, again, like I said, it's always going to be a dogfight. We made it harder than it had to be. But again, a win is a win. As another movie reference. It's not about, no matter where it's inch or a mile, winning is winning, right? So,
right.
I
got a question for you, Coach. I think this is kind of important given circumstances. So you've seen improved general injuries this year in terms of not being plagued by them immediately, which is certainly a difference, which credit ought be given where it's due in terms of making those changes for your team. That being said, your team literally has a saying: "Chargers are going to Charger," right? Which and there's other
which
teams.
Which is not something you want to be known for, by the way.
No. Like that. No. That's kind of where I'm going at. So with that in mind, and the fact that as a Chargers fan, you have to at minimum admit that there is multiple years in a row and over the course where you're like, yeah, that the saying is like that for a reason. Like to everything, there's a degree of truth, right? Mm-hmm. How and why do you think that is the case? Where do you put that bullseye to say, why is this so persistent? Why has this been going on for so long? And how have we been able to do the same thing through multiple regimes?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that it's a layered answer. Why I asked it. It's a layered answer too, and I think that you could honestly pinpoint a few things when it comes down to the idea of why that is. I think that the overarching decision making that we have going on in the organization, I think it's feast or famine. It's good and bad. It's really like one end of the spectrum into the other, where you always seem to land the right quarterback, right? But you always seem to not land the right coach. Like that's been an issue. Like your decision making when you choosing a coach and a leader of this group, especially when you have talent in the building, it's always been a problem. And that literally stems from the decision makers top to bottom. It goes from the Spanos family to the GM to everybody that's involved in that process. So I think that that's the issue. Some of it's just bad luck. I mean, everybody goes through those lulls where you have just a real terrible year when you have injuries at the wrong time. You're cooking, everything's rolling, and then all of a sudden, bam, you just get hit with 2 or 3 injuries that completely and utterly derail your season. But again, I also equate that to, again, go back to decision making. If you don't make things more difficult than it has to be and take care of business and stay above certain things, you put yourself in the situation. You make yourself vulnerable to those things happening. Like, prime example, not running your defense out there for longer than it has to be. If you're constantly being undisciplined, and this is a teaching moment for people and players in general, if you're constantly having a mental issue and a mental error at the wrong time and your defense is staying out there longer, that's 1 more player, that's 4 more plays, that's 10 more plays that you could get hurt on. Because again, it's a piling up of effect. Because if I'm a linebacker and I make 12 tackles a game, right, on a good defense, but if I'm a linebacker that's on a team that's the defense is on the field constantly and I'm making 18 or 20 tackles a game, that literally that wear and tear builds on my body. And all of a sudden, 1 wrong hit, 1 wrong moment of fatigue, then I'm hurt for the year. So you have to look at it from that perspective.
You want to know a great example of that?
Well, what's that?
I could prove, like, just in one name, Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
Okay, like literally, your comment
Patrick
right
Willis.
there.
Patrick Willis. Yeah.
No. In my
Calvin
opinion,
Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. But most people are going to know who Luke Kuechly is. He's recent enough that people remember who that guy is. He was the dude in the NFL
dude.
for
Yeah.
that.
The dude.
Like, he was the dude, and he was
he was
elite.
a quintessential linebacker.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was
listen.
elite. He was elite at that position, and he's a great example of exactly what you just said.
He was Fred
defense
Warner
sucked.
before Fred Warner was Fred Warner.
Exactly. So he was on a defense that sucked, and he was the reason why they
And he
were
was a
even
stud.
halfway good. He
Agreed.
was literally the reason, and he is a great example of a guy that he took 25 tackles extra over the course of like.
Just think about if they had a competent offense in his tenure, he'd probably still be playing right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with that. So it's
his mental.
It really
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope he coaches one day because that knowledge can't die with him. It's got to get passed on because it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. I love Luke Kuechly. I'm glad you brought that name up. But yeah, I mean, again, it just really come down to decision making and being smart about getting in and out of things when you need to. You know, that plays into it. You know, because I harkens back to the idea of having a bottom 5 defense. Again, if you're on the field a lot, the defense is going to get banged up. I mean, we're seeing it. Derwin James out with a hamstring, Joey Bosa out with a hamstring. If you play the game of being on the field longer than you have to be, longer than you should be, then you're going to get hurt. It's not a if, it's a certainty. It's a certainty. So you have to look at it from a perspective of you got to complement each other to the high level. If you do not, and you don't put people around you and the decision makers around you to do that, then there's always going to be a problem. But I think it's layered and it's all intertwined in the sense that we don't have the right decision makers at the top when it comes down to that. Because if you did, and you look at organizations that don't have these problems, they have better decision makers at the top. Let's just be honest about it. So I think that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I do. So Alex, we're gonna move over to you and the Chiefs. Actually, no. You know what, Captain? I want to hear the Raiders side.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know what? I was about ready to jump your shit, man. So I'm glad that you picked up on it because you were about 5 more expletives coming had you not figured that out.
I want to hear the Raiders side of the
I'm gonna have to get the button out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Keep it ready. Keep it ready because first off, F you, Rich. You said, oh well, F whatever Captain has to say, you know. But you know, I got to pick my nose right now, Richie. This is right for you right here. Okay.
Jesus.
Some could just say it was a very creative build-up.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, just to get your energy up. You just want to get your
Oh
energy
yeah,
up.
well yeah, because
You're jazzed, baby. Here we go.
I'm beyond jazzed because I'm about ready to blow with the bile that I have. First off, it was a very close game, and aside from the Mack attack, and I said on my show the other day, I said I will call him Khalil Mack, giving him his props because Mack always seems to have a fantastic game against the Raiders, which, you know, I don't know why. It's just that he has that much pent-up frustration because he's the one that didn't want to play for us, not the other way around. Okay? So it's not like we dropped him like a bad habit. He didn't want to play for us, so we traded him. So I don't know what that is. Normally it's for some guy that said, oh, well, they didn't want me. They got rid of me. It wasn't that at all. But, yeah, he seems to make career games out of the Raiders. 6 sacks, causing 2 fumbles, of which one of them was gotten, and then I think the other one might have been recovered by. But I know that he caught. There were 3 fumbles on O'Connell. Two of them were lost. One of them was not. Okay, and he made both the Luminor and Miller look like rookies in high school. The way he was playing, and I'll give Khalil Mack that. The rest of the line, as far as the offense for the Raiders, played well overall, especially in the second half. And I'm going to talk about some numbers as well. But before I get to the numbers that really, really upsets me, I'm going to go back into, and I want to hear Coach say this because I'm about ready to blow up if he says anything other than that. Okay. You have a offensive pass interference called against Jacoby Myers on that long gain that when we were going for a touchdown, might have been to tie or at least at least get the one touchdown down. I think it was to tie. By definition, ticky-tack, but by definition, it was an OPI. It was called. But then you have an offensive pass interference that was not called against Palmer on the 51-yard gain when the Chargers offense had 45 effing yards in the second half up to that call. 45 yards of total offense in the second half before that 51-yard gain, of which it was an offensive pass interference on Palmer. Again, ticky-tack, but offensive pass interference. Not called. Not called. And that's a barrage of friggin' horse pocky.
Oh, okay. I was making sure. Okay, you always said pucky. Okay,
I saw the cheeks. You were
I did. That's why I just wanted me. I had on.
You were visibly turning red. It was like a cartoon.
Yeah.
It really was.
Hey, no, I'm not going to say it, but F him anyway. Point being is that when you're playing 11 on 25 each game, it really pisses me off. When the cards are not distributed evenly, it pisses me off. When you have things that are called, you should have them called on both sides. Did you see the crackback block that was called against Myers in that game as well?
I did. So which one do you want me to address first?
The fact that the one was not a crackback block.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that.
So, and all of these different things are of the mind that, as we stated in the series of NFL Nation Live, when you have a former NFL official explicitly state the biasness of certain crews, and it was going to be a close game, and I said that the Raiders could have probably won that game before I heard it was John Hussey's crew and his umpire, and I don't know what his name is, but him and Hussey together, the Raiders do not win percentage-wise on any of the games that they officiate. And that is a statistical fact. The fact that you can have people bitch, moan, and groan about they said that Max Crosby stepped on Herbert's finger. No, he did not. Herbert got that injured face masking Max Crosby on the interception. It had nothing to do with being stepped on. He got it intertwined in the face mask of Max Crosby on that. So now they're blaming Crosby for injuring Herbert's finger. That's a load of horse pucky as well.
I don't blame Max Crosby for that. That happens. I mean, it's happened to me. It's happened to plenty of people I've seen. Where you're looking at the person, but you're not looking at the person because it was an interception. So he was looking at Merrick coming down the field, and Crosby was trying to block him. So he kind of put his hands up in preparation for Crosby trying to block him. And he got caught in the face mask. No big deal.
Gotcha. But the thing is that
I don't blame him for that.
Every media outlet that I said that is of a silver and black bias says, well, Max Crosby stepped on Herbert's fingers and that was a blow. That was just a what do you call it? Just bad. And there's worse things. I'm just really pissed off the fact that was a game that, in my estimation,
Raiders podcast is saying that.
No. Most of the bias podcasts that are anti-Raider were saying that it was anti-Raider. Said it was on Crosby. I'm like, what the hell are you watching? The officiating was not square. The fact is that, and I will say this as well, your boy Jerry Tillery had a wonderful 15-yard penalty, which was rightly deserved. And that was, oh yeah, no. It was rightly, the 15-yard penalty was rightly deserved.
I was wondering we were going to bring that up.
No, and kudos for them throwing the flag. That was a year's worth of frustration about not being able to hit Herbert just totally on one play. and it was a 15-yard penalty, it was rightly called. But I want somebody to tell me where the ejection stems from, because I saw nothing. That
I read
evoked
somewhere.
an ejection.
I read somewhere because the melee on the sideline, it led to it because
Okay.
they felt like, now let me finish. They felt like that it was going to only escalate from there, so they felt like they should get him out of the game because it was going to do nothing but, cause more problems if he was left in the game. That's what I read. Now, whether that's true or not, whether or not that's justified or not, it is what it is. But when it comes down to referees in general. And I funny that I listened to Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey podcast the other day, and they kind of alluded to the same thing I'm going to say, is that, and this is coming from a playing and a coaching perspective when I say this, is that referees are flawed. And it's not just about the it's not just about against the Raiders, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, anybody in the league. The referees are flawed. And I think we all understand it. And we all understand and we know this at this point, and then Alex may touch on this, what happened in his game. We talked about it privately about, things went on in that last series. The referees are biased, well, I'm not going to say biased. I'm going to say allegedly biased. I don't want to get in trouble with the league just yet. However, I'm going to say that they're flawed. So what you should always preach as a coach and as a team is that you should take care of business and control what you control and don't leave it up to the refs. Because going down to plays that happened at the end of the game, right? And my analysis of what happened with Josh Palmer, right? Because I looked at the all 22 view. I literally waited for NFL.com to post the all 22 view so I could see what happened on that play. And I see the justification of what they called on Myers and why they didn't call it on Palmer. And that goes back to the other point that they made in the podcast, is that certain referees, now it just depends on who you get. Certain referees, they much rather not influence the game. This is Gene Steratore quote. I'd rather not affect the game when the game's on the line. Like I'd rather let it be played out amongst the players. I don't want to make a call that's going to, one way or the other affect the game. Just let it be what it be. Let it happen in a sense. And some referees are like that. Some referees are not. Again, that goes down to the whole idea of the controlling what you can control. If you're not in that position as an opponent, or if you're in a position of strength as the person that won the game, it shouldn't come down to that.
Okay, well then how can you say that I can't let a play decide the outcome of a game when it's within the last 2 minutes of the game, when the OPI that was called against Myers that was going for a tying touchdown at the time was called at that time? That influences the game as well, because instead of it being deep in the Chargers' end, I think it was like on the 30-yard line or so. Okay,
I have my notes here. I'm gonna find it for you because I know exactly when that play happened. I'm gonna find my notes. Keep talking. I'm gonna find it for you when that play happened.
But the point is that play was just as instrumental as the other play on Palmer. The crackback block that was called, which was BS, could lead to more and more and more. It seems like every time the Raiders are getting a first down, and I would have to look at it statistically, it seems like every time the Raiders are getting a first down or it's a play that is to their benefit, there's a flag on the ground. Okay.
It happened on y'all 6th drive. It was under 2 minutes in the first half. And y'all end up, Renfro dropped the ball on the very next play, and y'all end up punting. So yes, that particular call affected your drive. Now, what I will say again is earlier in the game, and the circumstances were different because when Myers got to the defender, they both stopped. Myers put his hand on his shoulder pads to propel himself above him so he can catch the ball above his head. So that particular, if you drill down and look at that play, Myers was way more blatant in a sense of how you could call it, and versus it being a OPI on Palmer, because Palmer and Bennett were hand fighting. Because if you watch Ja'Cory Bennett's arm, he has Palmer's arm tucked to his body before Palmer pushes him, because he was trying to get his arm free. I literally zoomed in on the all 22. He has Ja'Cory Bennett has Palmer's arm like locked to his chest. And the reason why Palmer pushed him is because he had to try to get his arm free so he can catch the ball, because the ball was in the air. That's why you saw the push off.
Okay, I'm gonna end with, like I said, I firmly believe that the Raiders should have won the game. They did not. It's an L. And it's like the thing when the guy says that he hits a Texas League single. He said in the box scores the next day, it's a long hard line drive single, because the box scores are what dictates what it is. Okay, it's a single, it's a single, it's a single, it's an L, or it's a WW. Point is that there were things that were just really, really just hard to chew, especially the Herbert touchdown where he pops over, doesn't get it, and then Rugby scrums in. Even on the Rugby scrum, there's no way in hell that is confirmable evidence that the ball crossed the goal line. Of course, you have somebody like Bill Cowher, who's a Raider hater. Oh yeah, well, you see what they came in and the ball got bull crap.
Well, I mean, again, you could argue a lot because they called it a score in the field, so it was automatically reviewed by New York. So I mean,
I know,
hold on. So I've been letting the volley back and forth here go on for a little bit. The one comment that I think that both of you are missing when it comes to the reviews on this sort of thing. So I have two comments on the refereeing just in general. One, the call on the field is deemed the call unless on the review you can have basically clear-cut evidence.
Yes, indisputable evidence that to the contrary.
Right. So Coach, here's the kicker. What if I can't look at the evidence in the review tape and confirm that the ball actually crossed?
I have nothing I can tell you. There's nothing I can tell you.
No. But that's the problem, right? So if the refs, the net result is this. If you can't visually see that the ball actually crossed the goal line, then the ultimate question, this is the big, broad question to really say here is, should you then be saying that the thing was a touchdown? If you can't visually see that the ball itself actually crossed the thing, because keep in mind, the NFL doesn't have the chips and stuff like they do in some of these other leagues.
Right.
Right. So we don't have that to kind of go off of and say, no, it did anyway. Because look, like the digital is never wrong. So therefore it is what it is. NFL doesn't have that. So because they don't have that, then you're relying on the visual plane and what have you. And unless it is visually like bang on, yes, in my opinion, this kind of goes down to the refs should never be the reason for a team winning, and the refs should never be the reason for a team losing. Because at the end of the day, if the refs call one thing one way and not another, or whatever the case may be, and this is across the board, I don't care which team's playing, Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders.
Right. That was going to be my point. I mean, if we just take the emotional fandom out of it, it happens all the time. Because you look at it from this perspective, you have 4 to 6 referees on the field, right? They're all in conjunction with this call, right? And then you review it, and they still don't refute it. That's a lot of eyeballs for anybody's team to argue the idea of it not being a touchdown. So, I mean, we can nitpick and say the refs are not on our side and this and the third all day long. But at the end of the day, you have multiple camera angles. Let's be honest. We're in an age where we see the camera angles on TV. They have even more discrete camera angles from a New York perspective or NFL perspective. So if they can't get it right with those
cameras in the pylons, for crying out loud.
Right. I mean, again, you got cameras everywhere. You got multiple people reviewing it. You got referees on the field reviewing it. It's hard to argue the idea that they're going to ever do anything outside of what they did based upon what the circumstances were. He went over, he dove. They said his body weight and the push pushed him over. They called it a touchdown on the field. They reviewed it, and they said they didn't find anything wrong with it. They deemed it a score. It is what it is. It happens all the time. It happens in every game practically.
And this is the
NFL.
This is the same NFL that stated that they will not chip a football and chip a field, because then it would take out the factor of judgment. If you chip a ball or chip a field so that you know exactly where the chip is on a goal line, or even a first down for that matter, it takes all of the guesswork out of it. And they said that they won't do it because They want to leave it to the referees. And that, sir, is horsepuck.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, and at the end of the day, I guess the way I also look at it is this, which is,
it was a good game, by the way, Coach, and that's why I wanted you to come in.
Yeah, and again, I agree with the same sentiment, and I think that the problem with the Chargers should look at themselves in the mirror and say that had they had a more experienced quarterback, they likely would have lost that game. Based on how they played in the second half. I mean, O'Connell did his best his first time out in a real live NFL game. I think he did pretty good for himself.
O'Connell played rather well.
But
and
had they had a more experienced quarterback that can process and get out of things quicker, because I think some of those sacks that Mac had were coverage sacks, or he just wouldn't let loose the ball. He was holding the ball a little too long. So had they had a quarterback that can get the ball out faster, they likely would have lost that game. That's something you got to look at yourself and say, we got to do better.
Speed of dissection of the defense.
Yeah, you have to, if somebody can process just a little bit quicker, a couple milliseconds faster, and get the ball out, that's going to move the change. So I think that they should look at themselves like, we won the game, but there's a lot to clean up here.
And at the end of the day, despite the issue with the play calls and other things like that, as a Raiders fan, from a quarterback perspective, you have to be somewhat pleased with what you saw.
Yes, and like I said, and I'm of a mind that O'Connell should start the next game.
I agree.
Whether Jimmy G spot is ready or not.
I agree.
Because I saw more out of O'Connell that he did things better on accident than Garoppolo does on purpose. Okay? He did better things on that. And he does need to learn how to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker. And obviously, depending upon
that's going to come with experience. I think that's just experience.
That's what you want him to play.
That's exactly why I want him to play.
You want him to play.
Mm-hmm.
If you think he has a legitimate shot at being the guy for your team, and this will ultimately be the real risk that McDaniels takes as your head coach. This is the legitimate risk. Like not just
he could down that hill. You're right, Rich. If he does not pivot at some point, he could down that hill. You're right.
Yeah, this is it. So no, the question here is O'Connell potentially the guy? And if he is, then you want to see the consistent progression week over week. First game in, he's got the jitters. Fair enough. Dude, this is your first NFL game. Good luck, right? But then you want to see him go the next game and slightly improve, and then go the next game and slightly improve. Keep in mind that he does not have an Alex Smith sitting in front of him who is a veteran and willing to teach and all those kind of things. Because Jimmy Garoppolo,
he's got a guy that's had to deal with 1B for the last 5 years.
Yeah, exactly, right? Alex Smith has been a guy. Like, he was always the guy. And so Alex Smith is like, I've had a great career, blah, 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 and it's time for a legacy moment at this point. And why not impart my knowledge to Patrick Mahomes? Because the team has already told me right on the get-go, before the season ever started, by the way, verified, Alex Smith said so. Okay? When they drafted Mahomes, Andy Reid, before he even drafted Mahomes, went up to Alex Smith and said, we're drafting Mahomes. He's the future. You need to know. And Alex Smith said, fine. So you already had a quarterback that knew that the end was near, and he did the right thing by mentoring. And now the Chiefs have a quarterback that's on a trajectory for a Hall of Fame career. And to be in the upper tier in the quarterbacks if he continues what he's doing right now. So, I think at the end of the day, Jimmy G is not that guy. Jimmy G is not Alex Smith. Jimmy G is not a guy that's going to sit there to try to give up his job. He's going to be probably a jerk about it because he seems like he's perhaps that type of guy. And so Alex O'Connell is going to have to play in order to get himself on the field and learn those things.
Aiden O'Connell, but I know what you're saying.
Sorry, Aiden O'Connell, yeah.
Yeah, and DZ, I disagree with that. We don't know that. I think he can be more than a decent backup. There was a guy by the name of Rich Gannon that people thought was just a come-day-go-day guy, but he goes to the right situation and the right offense and under the right tutelage. He bounces around from Minnesota to Kansas City and then becomes an offensive league MVP. So you don't know that he might be a decent backup. I tell you what, he's better than what we have in front of him right now.
But you know what the Raiders are going to do, and most teams do the same thing, is that when you have a incumbent or veteran quarterback, you're going to utilize him until you're out of the race.
Until you can't.
Then that's when you give O'Connell the reins. So it's going to be a back end of the season type of move if you ever start him at all this year, assuming Jimmy G stays healthy throughout the season. But they're going to have to be completely early out of the playoff race before they give O'Connell the reins. Kind of like what Washington did with Hal. They just threw him out there, at the very end of it when they feel like they were still kind of in it, and they threw Hal out there late. But they didn't give him the chance to the end of the season.
I tell you what, though, if you don't do that, and there is a possibility, and again, a possibility, the Raiders can be better than what people think they are by using O'Connell now and throughout the season. Derek Carr, God, that's a friggin' curse word, was 0-10 until he beat Alex Smith and the Chiefs on that Thursday night game. 0-10 his rookie season, and he played pretty well for the 9th season that he was there. So I say let the kid play, get more experience, and who knows what we can do when you rally behind somebody. And I tell you what, Devontae Adams gives him kudos, and he wanted him to play. And Adams was playing hurt last week because O'Connell was there. I don't think Adams would have gone back into the game if Jimmy G-Spot was there. No way.
Well, Adams has been visually upset with some of the plays that Jimmy Garoppolo has attempted over the course of this season. Adams has shown visual frustration. I'm going to quickly take this, and then Alex, I'll lead into the Broncos, and we'll finish off with the Chiefs. DZ, I disagree with this, actually, and here's why. If I'm going to put my faux Raiders hat on that I don't own, but just pretend that I do, and think of it from a Raiders perspective, no, I keep Adams, I keep Jacobs, my two best players. I give my rookie quarterback legitimate options at both the running back and the wide receiver position to show what he can or cannot do. Because I already have them under contract this season. They've already counted against the cap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you find that your young rookie quarterback is progressively getting better as the season goes on, and you believe he can actually be that franchise guy, if I'm the Raiders, I'm throwing caution to the wind, and I'm going to start putting major offensive line help in front of my quarterback. I'm going to start getting maybe another young wide receiver to put out there, and also look for defensive line help to assist Max Crosby to further bolster my team and continue to be competitive, because a young quarterback needs protection and needs to be able to read the field. And right now, the Raiders' offensive line has not been a major improvement, and therefore, I'm just being honest. And if you want your young dude to succeed, you need that.
You know what, Richie? I agree with you, but you know what they should do? They should just ask Devontae Adams candidly, like, who would you prefer throwing you the ball? Jimmy Garoppolo or Aiden O'Connell? And that's who you go with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
also think playing O'Connell, it's like a win-win situation, because if he doesn't progress,
you can get rid of Jimmy G. Yeah,
you can just move on next year.
Right, and you can take Jimmy G's money and pay Josh Jacobs, because you have the issue with paying him right now. So take some of that $30 million that Jimmy's getting, want to let it into Josh Jacobs and rebuild your roster. Watch it, get your right tackle, whatever the case may be, and go.
Well, they might have their right tackle with Mumford, who can actually slide over to right guards. I'm sure he's better than Van Roten. And then you got the kid that's on IR, Wagner, who's like big, friggin' huge right tackle. So might have right guard and right tackle squared away next year, if not this year, with Mumford. I tell you what, the way Illuminor is playing, Mumford can't be any worse. Trust me on that. He can't be any worse.
Well,
I throw Mumford out there.
I'm a Broncos fan, and I've seen fans make that statement, and trust me, it can always get worse. Watching the Broncos offensive line play, but the point being is the quarterback is in fact the most important position on the roster, and if you have a young cheap guy that's filling that position right now, and you can then upgrade the positions that both protect that quarterback support that quarterback, and allow that quarterback to get back on the field with interior defensive line play, I'm sorry, that's a recipe to absolutely set the league on fire for the next 4 or 5 years. So
can I interest you in a guy by the name of Brock Purdy?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy 100%. Farrell, Adams would prefer O'Connell over Jimmy G. That comment is wrong. Because Adams is pissed off at what Jimmy G is doing. So you might want to rethink. You might want to rethink that comment, Shipmate, because you are wrong.
He is. Adams has been. Look, I'm not even a Raiders fan, and I have receipts from Adams, like chewing Jimmy G out. Okay, so let's just the answer is no. In my opinion, I think Adams likes what he sees.
He hadn't said his name, but I would say subliminally yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he was pissed.
Oh yeah, he was. He didn't say his name directly, but I'm sure we all know who he was talking about.
Look, the only thing he didn't do was put up a poster.
That's coming.
You're like,
yeah. Being printed now as we speak.
Yeah.
Print the shirts. Print the shirts.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on to the Broncos game real quick. Wow.
No, hell with that. You got to go with him because you said that he was coming up anyway. He hasn't had a chance to talk, Richie. Yeah,
I'm going to be fast with the Broncos.
That's all right.
We almost lost to the Bears.
True.
It was a lot more of what I've seen in past games. Our offensive line has not played particularly well. We saw Russell Wilson hang in there despite knowing he was going to get hit. Rolled out of the pocket, made a few nice plays. Two wide receivers that really deserve to be on the field and be starters 100% for the Broncos are Brendan Johnson. For those that are fans of the show that have been with us since the beginning, the one name that I threw out there, Captain, if you remember from the Raiders game, when we were playing you the first game of the season there, was Brendan Johnson. Every week consistently, that dude has showed out. He is kind of a new up-and-coming version of Tim Patrick in some regard. Not the same type of wide receiver, but certainly got similar competency when it comes to making plays, putting himself in good positions, and giving other teams fits. So he's a guy certainly to pay attention to on the Broncos. And we have a new speed guy in Marvin Mims, who has surprised me a little bit given what I saw in college, where he had some issues. He seems to have fixed some of those issues and really looked quite good for the Broncos when he's been on the field, and really ought to see more play time and more targets. So good for him. And just atrocious, and I mean atrocious pressure on the quarterback, and to say there wasn't any, there really and truly was not any. And anyone watching the show after the fact that would like to leave a comment to argue with me in the comments down below, please do so. It'll be fun for me. Nick Benito's strip sack, he was completely uncovered. I could have made that play if I was uncovered, because I wasn't covered. And so the answer is, yes, he made a play, but he did so without any resistance whatsoever. Where you really start getting into giving edge guys credit and whatnot is when they beat a guy to get to the quarterback. And really the last time the Broncos had a guy that could do something like that was with Bradley Chubb. And then, of course, Von Miller, who was, virtually unblockable at his position, who really kind of was the gold standard for guys like that. But, we have not had actual pass rush when we have had our edge rushers need to actually face resistance of any real kind, if we're going to be honest. So moving ahead, I'll start talking about what I think about the Jets. But at the end of the day, we barely beat the Bears, and that game could have gone either way. So no, I'm not happy. No, I don't think that changes anything. No, this is not momentum. And, this is going to be a long season. Alex, over to you and the Chiefs because there's not enough beer in my boot to make the season any better.
Fair enough. Yeah, so Chiefs, pulled the win out 23-20 against the Jets. Obviously, not what you would expect or hope to see in terms of margin of victory / total points on the board, especially with how the Jets looked, going into that game. But at the end of the day, they did, find a way to pull out the W and, got the top spot in the AFC and, hope they can continue to build off that. Also 2-0 when T Swift's in attendance. So hopefully, no, I'm kidding.
That's going to be a stat now.
That's getting to be too much. It's getting.
It really is. It's too much. It really is at this point.
Just blowing it up. I hear she might be on the Madden cover next year. That's how it's going. So,
I don't think she want that kind of juju. She's gonna break her leg on stage or something.
Yeah, right. Or get canceled outright. Probably be the ultimate Madden curse. But
hey, Zed, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the game. Are you talking about the Chiefs Jets game? I didn't watch it. I heard the officiating sucked, but again, I didn't watch it.
It was bad, like just bad.
It ain't just the Raiders. Officiating bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
It happens everywhere. I know Coach kind of alluded to it earlier. We were talking about it real time, and I mean, there was definitely calls that weren't made that should have gone the Jets' way. But for as much as Sauce wants to talk, he was holding at the end. I mean, that was a penalty as well. They probably missed a hold on Smith. But,
wait, did you say Sauce Gardner holds people?
Yeah, I did.
No. Blasphemy.
Yeah, but penalties are going to get called and not called. And, I think Jason Kelsey, you were kind of talking about listening to their podcast. He kind of put a nice bow on it where he said, that's what good teams do is capitalize on the mistakes. And you view it as them getting favoritism. That's just because they capitalized on it. Like, I mean, there were calls that went the Jets' way and they just didn't score or do anything after the fact. So, it kind of cuts both ways, and that's just it is part of the game. As much as we want to talk about changing it, until a change is made, this is what it is. So, just kind of have to deal with the fact of calls and no calls. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs did capitalize, and were able to hold the ball for damn near 8 minutes to finish it out, the 3-point win against a pretty solid defensive unit. So, it wasn't a terrible win, but I think there is plenty to come away from to be cautious about in terms of the offense and how, how they looked, I guess, through the longevity of the game, because they put up 17 points in the first quarter. I left the first quarter with the impression it was going to be a boring game to watch it in terms of it was just going to be a blowout and there wasn't going to be any sort of level of being on the edge of your seat. And I mean, I had to eat my words by the end of it, but that's there obviously, but then you get 2 uncharacteristic Mahomes interceptions back to back and, end up putting up 6 points total from the second quarter on. But I went on the Jet Central channel and talked about how they needed to emphasize the run game more and utilize the run game more to be able to be successful against the Jets defense. So they sure as hell did that. So, also made me eat that because I sat Pacheco in all fantasy leagues. So, and he proceeded to go off. But, I think that was the MVP of the game and the reason that they were able to win it with some of their offensive lulls. I mean, like I said, they had the ball for almost 8 minutes to finish it out. So Jets never got the ball back after Wilson fumbled the snap, which was the other MVP component to the game. But yeah, I mean, just some uncharacteristic things like Mahomes, throwing back-to-back turnover picks, 0-4 in the red zone. So, I mean, plenty of things to continue to work on. And hope they can do that going into this Minnesota game with a little bit less of a elite defense.
How about that?
I actually watched. I can't say I didn't watch it. I wasn't actively watching it. I did see Salah a couple times on the sideline in a conniption fit.
Oh, he lost.
He got
when he's like going like intentional grounding, which wasn't called. And no, I mean, you talk about me with a red face, about ready to blow up. I'm like,
I said he looked like that. He looked like that. He just every time the camera went to him, he just looked like that Michael Scott meme where he's just blinks, just pissed off.
Yeah,
right. Like he got unsportsmanlike at the end of the game.
He did. Yeah. He was. Which over.
I mean, it sucks that it went that way, but it is what it is. But I mean, hats off to the Jets. Obviously, defense is an elite unit. But I mean, Zach Wilson, for all the crap he was getting, all the way up to this point, he put together two pretty elite quarters of football. So yeah, I mean, hats off to that. We'll see if they can build on that as we get into our Week 5 preview here, Richie.
I agree. So maybe going right off of that, we'll jump right into the Broncos and Jets, just because I think that might be a natural progression there, just to kind of go from the one AFC team to play against the two of us are kind of going back to back there in terms of playing the Jets. Obviously, we have our great friend at Jet Central who jumped in to give us his take on the Broncos-Jets game. For those of you who have forgotten a few lead-ins before we get into this, because I don't believe that he actually covered it off. One, our former head coach that we fired mid-season last season is now the Jets offensive coordinator, something else to remember. And two, for those of you who forget, Sean Payton was running his mouth in the early part of the season, throwing.
I was wondering when you're going to bring that up.
Yeah, who threw Nathaniel Hackett under the bus and then proceeded to back the bus back over him.
And then proceeded to light his own bus on fire.
I think it's fair.
And lit him on fire. and
then lit his own bus on fire, man.
Yeah, and what else did he do? And he brought his mother out and threw her on the fire, too.
Yeah.
So, he just fire spotted the whole family.
It was pretty fugly. Yeah.
So there's that. And I also think that a lot of people are kind of forgetting that fact. And also, in addition to that, just the Broncos players have been running their mouths about all their upcoming opponents when, frankly, our team has sucked. And so they need to kind of, slow their roll because that's just unacceptable. But anyways, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get into the three-point stance from our great friend at Jet Central. And let's see what the Jets need to do to beat the Broncos other than just showing up.
Damn it, I was just good.
All right, guys, thanks so much for having me. It's obviously a massive week for the New York Jets, right? I can only speak for the Jets here, but we're 1-3 on the season. Lost it was a close game last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, or Sunday night rather. I literally couldn't find a single person that had the Jets even competing in that game, but it literally went to the final couple of minutes. It seriously felt like a boxing match, right? It went like the full 12 rounds, and it was extremely, from my perspective, extremely encouraging to see the competitiveness, to see just the fight and the fire that the Jets came out with that night. Because again, when you kind of feel like your team is dead in the water before the game even kicks off, and looking at the two previous weeks, the loss against the Dallas Cowboys and then the loss against the Patriots, you're like, okay, Zach Wilson not really performing well, offensive line not really blocking well, Nathaniel Hackett, ex-Bronco head coach, not calling good games. He's not preparing for the opposition well whatsoever. And then you're watching these guys in the press conferences throughout the week. You're reading these random reports, and it's like, oh, finger pointing, offense versus defense. It doesn't really seem like the Jets had a major sense of urgency to make changes, whether it's with personnel, bringing another quarterback or whatever the case may be. It just seemed like the Jets were completely fine, with the usual, with the status quo. So going into that Chiefs game, I was trying to be optimistic And I was honestly pleasantly surprised. And even though the Jets lost, even though we're sitting here right now again at 1-3, 2 games below 500, I'm feeling so much better compared to last Monday against or last week post that Patriots game. I was thinking like, it feels like we're 2-8, like season slipping through our fingers. And there's like nothing we can do about it. But when we look at this game, I really think the big 3 things that the Jets have got to focus on. Number 1, we have to see Nathaniel Hackett come out with a similar game plan, right, this week, just like we saw last week, which was getting Zach Wilson outside of the pocket for the first 3 weeks. And granted, I will give Hackett a pass in that first game because Rodgers goes down 4 plays in. I wasn't expecting him to, have a full bulletproof Zach Wilson game plan just ready to go in his back pocket on the fly. So I will give him a pass there. But in weeks 2 and 3, that to me was just, unacceptable. So again, in week 4, he was really getting Wilson outside the pocket, really utilizing play action, pushing the ball down the field. And we, even though it wasn't successful every single time, we at least planted the seed in Andy Reid and the Chiefs defense head, saying, you know what, we're going to try it. And ultimately, it did end up connecting on a few critical plays. Like Allen Lazard came down with a massive catch, and Zach Wilson almost was playing free. We've seen him just be confined to the pocket in these past couple of games. And again, in that Chiefs game, he was just playing loose. He was playing free. He was just letting the ball just, he's firing it all around the field. I believe 10 different players caught a pass from Wilson that night. Didn't throw any interceptions, which is always a major plus, especially when we're talking about Zach. So Nathaniel Hackett, the game plan, the play calls throughout the game have to be similar. He can't call the game handcuffed to fear of turning the football over or going 3 and out over and over and over again. I think with Zach, and it's almost like a paradox, or it kind of contradicts what you think, right? Because Wilson has always been the guy that has never put up the good numbers, right? You're thinking, okay, can he hopefully get 170 passing yards this game? Can he please not throw an interception? So you're thinking, okay, short passes, lean on the running game, feed the tight ends, that kind of, those types of things. But it seems like when Zach has his best games, he is firing the football down the field, really trying to push the ball, get the safeties playing on their heels a little bit, which would then hopefully open up, some things underneath. So that's the first thing. Again, Nathaniel Hackett has to be on point. And I guess I already talked about the second point too, which was Zach Wilson, obviously has to go out and execute. Hackett can call the right plays and, have a great game plan installed. But if Zach isn't out there executing, if he's missing wide open guys, if he's bouncing screen passes before they hit the target, like we saw a lot of last season, unfortunately, it could be a long day. Right now, I know that Denver has a long list of problems as well, but I do feel like the two teams match up well. And I will say this: I think when you specifically look at the Denver Broncos roster, who knows this roster outside of the Broncos coaching staff? Nathaniel Hackett. So I think with that extra, inside information, if you will, he knows a lot of the players' strengths and weaknesses in that Denver locker room. So I think having that insight in regards to preparing throughout the week for this Broncos team is going to be huge. I think that's such an underrated aspect, but you can also flip it too and talk about it from the Broncos side of it, where it's just like, we had to let this guy go not even one season into his career. We know what he likes to do. We know his tendencies. And we know he knows us. So there could be like a mental chess game that is being played. But number 3, the defense has got to look a little bit better. That was one of the areas in that Chiefs game that I felt like let us down. The Chiefs came out 17-0, right? Just a quick 17 points. They had those 17 points in the first quarter alone. We had a dropped interception. We consistently allowed Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs offense to convert on multiple 3rd and longs, one of which was a 3rd and 22 on like late into the fourth quarter. We were flagged multiple times, ticky-tack flags, but they were still flagged nonetheless. So if the defense can maybe just look a little bit better, and again, Hackett comes in with a good game plan, calls a game correctly, and then Zach Wilson executing. Hopefully, we'll be walking away with the W. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks so much, and as always, go Jets.
And we're back.
And we are back. A few things. Yes, I do believe that the Jets will, in fact, be beating the Broncos this game. I think we saw the fact that the Jets were able to. The word comfortably maybe isn't the best word to use, but they absolutely hung in there against the Chiefs, who are clearly still the best team in the division. I think all but proves that. And so, I see this as a pretty one-sided game. If you're putting my feet to the fire based on what I've seen so far from the Jets and the Broncos, more importantly, what I've not seen from the Broncos, my gut reaction has this game as maybe a 7 to 10 point differential in favor of the Jets based on what we've seen these past few weeks, unfortunately. Because that will make for a very long game for me to have to watch again on Sunday. The one thing that I will say, Avatar, you did bring up our undrafted free agent running back in Jaleel McLaughlin. He has been a rare bright spot in some of the various position groups that we've seen on the field. No. Just no. And so when you look at like an Alva Kamara type in terms of how Sean Payton has used Kamara, you're starting to see more and more plays that are certainly in that vein in terms of how he is using Jaleel McLaughlin. And I think whether it be Darren Sproles or, as a Darren Sproles type player, or
you guys got Sarah McLaughlin on your team?
No, because she's Canadian, and I would rather her not be. Because wow, is that a whiny voice? But in terms of what we've seen from Sean Payton, that undrafted free agent running back, he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he can kind of do the various things that Payton needs. He's the type of player that we need to make Sean Payton's offense work. And then we have the big bruiser, obviously, in Pirine there, who I think offers a different flavor. So sadly, though, this is not going to look good. And where you guys are going to really see a huge difference in this game is defensive line pressure. You're going to see just an absolute bombardment on Russell Wilson. He was able to get some throws off this past game against the Bears. That I do not believe will be the case because the Jets D-line is we'll just say substantially better than that of the Bears. And Alex, you can pretty much attest to that.
They're substantially better than pretty much everybody's D-line in the league.
They might have the best.
They just might.
Yeah. So, by and large, I think there'll be a few bright spots in the game for the Broncos where you'll see a couple plays and it'll, give you a glimmer of hope as a Broncos fan. But at the end of the day, I do not believe that we are going to be beating the Jets. I would love to be proven wrong and have a bunch of people, flame me on X or Twitter, or even coming back in the comment section here for this video. I just don't see it happening. I'm sorry. The answer is no. Like I said, I have this as a 7-point to 10-point loss, depending on how things go. And frankly, it could even be worse than that, depending on how things end up. So that's my general take on the game. That's my general take on kind of what we're going to see. And also just for those Broncos fans that are here, Clayton, I do very much appreciate your optimism. I truly wish I had more booze on hand. So I too could be that optimistic. It's just my problem.
Jets win 9-0.
Jesus.
GA Patriot, if the Jets can hang with the Chiefs and their defense, which is playing at a different level this season, and be right within that, basically field goal in terms of the differential and score, the Jets are absolutely scoring more than 9 points against the Denver Broncos and are 34th worst defense in the league.
34.
Oh, sorry. 32nd worst defense in the league. Floridian slip, my mistake.
Did he say Freudian or Floridian?
Floridian.
I said Floridian just to kind of get your.
Okay, I was
trying to see if you were with us.
By the way,
Yeah.
Shout out to Clayton Heron who actually comes on my show and represents the Broncos well. Fans from other teams can come on and get a chance to talk. It's great when you have folks that are cool fans and actually represent and are not real a-holes. And
Yeah.
Clayton's a good guy.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But my big thing here is just there's too many things stacked up against us right now. We don't have enough guys back to make enough of a difference on the defensive side of the ball. Some of the guys are starting to get back healthy, but it'll fake it for a little bit. But at the end of the day, you're not moving the needle too much. So this is a season of identifying the key players that are in value positions that we would like to keep, who are in
Sell everyone.
Yes, this is a
Sell.
Yeah. Dump it now.
yeah. And let's just hope that our team looks much different next season, and just accept the pain. Is kind of where I'm at right now. With that in mind, Captain, let's throw over to your Raiders and discuss your upcoming game for Week 5, which is hopefully going to be much less painful than mine.
Yeah, actually, I literally just got off the IM with a Packers fan that was hit me up. He said, "Hey, I've never been to your stadium, so I don't know how safe it's going to be." He dresses up like I said, "Dude, this ain't Oakland. This is not Oakland, so no worries there." He has a Darth Vader mask, wearing Green Bay Packers overalls. Unique getup. But really cool guy. And so I told him, "Hey, come on over and hang with the Hollywood Nine. We'll make sure that he's good." And like I said, Vegas ain't Oakland, baby. Vegas ain't Oakland. And so it's a destination for everybody that's there. And it will. I mean, I fully expect to see a lot of orange the very last game of the year. When the Broncos, and I'll be kind, when the Broncos come to town and play the Raiders. So the only home game that we have each year is in LA.
Yeah.
True. That's the only home game that we have each year is in LA.
There is a tremendous amount, in fairness though, just because of the LA Raiders and whatnot, there is a tremendous amount of Raiders fans that show up when they're there. I mean, it's a fact.
I mean, it's so odd to flex on because, like, your stadium, everybody else overruns your stadium, but you happen to overrun ours in one game, and we have one home game a year.
And Coach, I said that. I said Vegas is a destination stadium. There are a lot of people that come in, and until the Raiders actually have a decent product on the field, there's going to be more of it. At best, it'll be 50-50. At best, it'll be 50-50, but there will be a boatload of opposing fans in Vegas Stadium. Why? It's like, oh, baby, our team's playing in Vegas this year. Let's make it a 5-day trip. We can go to Cirque du Soleil, and we can go see the falls, and we can do this, and we can do that. Then we can go see this show and that show. And then on Sunday or Monday, we can go to the game, too. Okay, I'm just saying it's and until such a time that the Raiders have a decent product on the field, better than what they have in Denver right now.
But that was wild. is that if you LA and Vegas not that far away. Like it's like a 45-minute flight, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It's a rounding
so
error.
why aren't there LA fans going to Vegas for games on a regular
They
basis?
do.
I don't get that.
They do, but it's still a 45-minute flight.
Huh?
Yeah. They go to Vegas, but here's the difference there, Coach, is that in Oakland was renowned for its tailgates. The entire parking lot from A to B to C to D was a shite ton of individual barbecues and festivals and different cuisines from all around the globe. In Vegas, it's one lot, and we're starting to try to at least get that lot to branch out. So it's J lot,
that's how SoFi
branching
is.
over to H light.
Yeah, the pink
branching
lot is
over
the
to
only
H
tailgating
lot.
lot. Yeah,
Right. So that's the difference, is that what we had the home field advantage, and we had the crowd that was there, and they all came in and did the tailgates. They don't do that in Vegas. So when you lose all that aspect of the game, it's like the people from Oakland don't want to come over on a flight, not being able to have their stuff there unless they get was it Tailgate Jack? He has a a storage unit where he brings his stuff that's already in Vegas. So he flies in, and his cars and tailgate stuff are already there. So he makes it for that. There's very few people that do that, and you lose the aura of the home field. You pay the devil to get a brand new stadium, and that's one of the unfortunate things.
Huh?
Yeah. So with regards to the Packers captain, your thoughts on, aside from the fact that there's going to be a lot of Packers fans in the stadium.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Packers fans.
A lot of green.
I honestly, like I said, if the Raiders play up to potential, and I hate saying that each week, but if the Raiders play up to potential, and based upon what I saw the last time I saw the Packers play, I will predict a W, pending who the crew is, and I'll find out tomorrow what thing I have to have on that. I don't know what the line is right now. I haven't looked, but I feel good about the way the team is playing overall, especially what moxie that they showed against the Chargers. I'm being kind, Coach. I didn't call them the Garglers yet. Oh, I'm sorry, I just did.
You just did. The line is -1 for Green Bay.
Oh, so Green Bay is favored.
Yep, by -1. So it's really not anything at all. It's -1.
Yeah. No, it's not Husky's crew. And one thing I will say, and I learned this from Ref, is that most of the time, and you can get on this, most of the time when you get an official, you get them once a year. On the very rare time you get a double up on officials. So if you have a real a-hole official and you've already had them, most of the time you don't get screwed. Most of the time. So we don't have to worry about Blake's crew. Probably. We don't have to worry about Hussey's crew. Probably. That's up for, that's not always true, but for the most part, you get one official per season, and then you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Yeah. But I think the Raiders are a better team right now than Green Bay. I know that's something to chew on, and you guys might think, and I'm not smoking anything. I just think that they're a better team right now than Green Bay.
I think that's a little bias sauce
poured
on top of that. But
no, I firmly believe that there's no biasness in it. The way that
I'm gonna be honest with you, on paper,
the way that I've seen Green Bay play, and the way that I've seen us play in spurts as we can play, I will take our team over Green Bay. And there's no Coach. I said if I'm biased, I'm biased. There's no biasness in that. I think we have a better team than Green Bay at this point. What I've seen from Green Bay play, and what I've seen us play when we have shown what we can play, I will take the home field with enough Raider fans in the stands, especially being pissed that they let a game go away the last two games. Okay. I would say that I would give the Raiders the nod on this one.
We shall see.
So the Packers won against the Bears. They lost against the Falcons. They barely beat the Saints, and they lost badly to the Lions. So, I mean, I'd say that on paper, Coach, I kind of agree with you. Like in theory, they should not they should look better than they are right now.
Right. I'm just saying on paper, and what happens on the field is a whole different ballgame. But on paper, the roster wise, talent wise, they have more talent than the Raiders. But again, that does not translate necessarily what happens on the field. Plus, they're missing their left tackle and left guard, so it could be a whole different ballgame.
The challenge that I see with the Packers is that they're just not living up to what they should be able to do, and they're playing poor football. Overall, like they're just not doing what they should be doing, and so
I think they're playing pretty solid defense. It's just their offense is hit or miss.
Yeah,
right.
That's the problem.
Right.
They're still trying to figure out what Jordan Love is.
Right.
Yeah,
so the question is their defense good enough to force O'Connell and the offensive line of the Raiders to not look good? I'm going to say maybe, but then the other flip side of that is what's Jordan Love going to look like when he's in Vegas and the big lights and the big screen with all the stuff and all the distractions and all that kind of stuff? I'm going to say that Jordan Love is probably also not going to have a very good game regardless, at which point I could, well, I'm not going to be looking at this from like a silver and black perspective. I could see this game basically being a coin flip.
Yeah, that's why it's a 1-point spread.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Vegas don't know they're in Vegas.
I mean, for reference, the Jets Broncos spread is 1.5.
It's pretty indicative. So. Yeah, I think it's pretty indicative of how they feel about this game. I think it could go either way.
Yeah. So I mean, I would agree that I think it's possible that if the Raiders have a surgence of the local crowd and the whatever, that could be a difference maker. But then I also think that it could be the flip side, which is, if the Packers defense plays up to their potential, that it could actually kind of really force this to be a bit of not a one-sided game, but certainly end up being a Packers win as a result. But it is a coin flip. Like it is a legitimate coin flip game, in my opinion, from what we see from both teams so far this season.
And Coach, you like I said, the picks that I made this year, I picked a loss against Buffalo. I picked close game against both you and the Broncos, and I said I predicted a win against the Steelers. And you take a pick six that Peters had and some other bad coaching things away. Then that's the reason why I'm not biased in my picks. Trust me, I'm very analytical in what I would say. I'm not a homer, not at all.
I thought it was the Steelers.
Stillers.
Right.
Yeah.
Stillers and Eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, guys, the Chargers are in their bye week. Obviously, as a Chargers fan, you probably know that already. But for the rest of those joining the show, Coach doesn't have anything to predict for this week other than hoping that everyone stays healthy, and of course doesn't do anything stupid. Because suspensions are a legit thing when you have a bye week potentially as well. So
no betting on games on your bye week, dummies.
They did move on. They did move on from their cornerback, though.
Yeah,
that they did.
And I guess this is probably just a quick throw in just for the show. I think we should probably go into more detail about it later. But Randy Gregory was released from the Denver Broncos this week, and Coach, your Chargers traded J.C. Jackson.
Back to the Patriots.
Back to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Which
and they're paying the money, aren't they?
$24 million in dead money next year.
Yeah.
And the picks that they gave up to put him back in New England.
They got a 6th and gave them a 7th, which is I mean, really. Really? For $80 million cornerback, you gave him. You got a 6th round. You basically moved up into the 6th round. So you have 2 6 versus having a 6 and a 7. That's high quality value there.
And for those of us joining the show as well, we really do appreciate you joining us. If you could click those like buttons down below in each of the channels that you're in watching, it will help our video rise in the YouTube algorithm, help other fans jump in here and provide their commentary as well. And if you are watching after the fact and have a deep question that you just felt that we did not answer tonight on the show, you can leave those questions down below in the comments, and we will do our very best to go ahead and answer those.
Who was playing QB for the Raiders?
Yeah, Bass. We picked up Bassey. Yeah, we picked up his same Bassey.
Bassey.
Okay, he'll do better for you.
It won't cost $80 million to suck.
That's true. That's a
good one. Come on, that was good.
Salute, Cap. That was a good one. Cap, I gotta give you kudos. That was a damn good one. Kudos to that. That was a damn good one right there. I won't be pissed to get. He's not costing me $80 million and look terrible. You're right about that. Yeah. But I have trepidation that gives me pause when it comes to small corners. I do. I just do. I mean, we're talking the average height of a wide receiver is 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1" tall. Guy's 5'9". Even if he can jump out the gym, it gives me, you know, it keeps me up at night when it comes down to them defending anybody at a high level, especially on the outside. You know, because you think about it like this, them going up against our receivers 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", it's not fair. It's not fair. So even if Bassey runs a sub 4.4, he's still 5'9" inches tall. And again, it's not a fair fight. It's not. And that's
5'9" in the program, so you know he's only 5'6".
Exactly.
Yeah,
so again,
he's listed at 5'10".
He was listed 5'9". His draft profile on NFL.com said 5'9".
Okay.
Yeah. But again,
he's kind of like that fish that you catch each year. I caught a 14-pound bass who was 20 inches. I caught a 16-pound bass who was 25.
Right.
I caught an 18-pound bass that was.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, DZ. Why didn't they call Bryce Callahan? If you were looking for a corner, why Bryce Callahan sit on the couch? Why not call Bryce Callahan then versus picking up Bass? But again,
Coach, I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but do you know?
I get it.
Do you know who stepped in for Bryce Callahan on the Broncos?
Bassey.
Do you know who is within that tree, and do you know who was pounding on the table for saying Bassey to start?
Bassey.
Oh! Rich is going to tell us.
It was Vic Fangio, who Staley that's his mentor, was Vic Fangio, and so all of those those things all align. Like everything is all in a straight line there.
Yeah, we see it.
And yes, GA, you're right.
Get him.
You know,
we know. And I was just about to follow up on your question. Like that. I was going to find that out for you.
Yeah.
But
you're going to follow $80 million not to suck. I think that's the highlight of the show, right?
That was a good one. Kudos. That was a good one. That was definitely a good one. But
so
always leave on a high note. Gotta go, guys.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Show's over.
Don't stand up. You might not have pants on.
No, I do have pants on. I do.
Okay, that's good. All right, Alex. On that note, questions on who you're playing, what you think is going to happen, and all that good stuff. And guys, I just have to quickly step off camera just for a minute.
First and foremost, who's playing QB for the Raiders? I'm still going to ask, Patriot.
We don't know.
Okay, fair enough. No one knows. All right. Now back to the Chiefs, which is what we're here to talk about now. So, got a game coming up against the Vikings. The Vikings haven't looked terribly good this year thus far. I think their performance last year is, they're still in close games, just obviously aren't capitalizing on them. And I think this is for what was at the beginning of the year supposed to be a very difficult portion of the Chiefs' schedule. Seems to be a little less intimidating than it was at the start. But I mean, nonetheless, Vikings are still a very good offense. I think the bigger thing is they haven't really been able to stop anyone. So, kind of my three keys, so to speak. I think the biggest thing the Chiefs need to do is continue what they did against the Jets and kind of use the running game to manage the game, or at least keep the time of possession up. So, I mean, they still outpaced Jets, I think, by 6 minutes in terms of time of possession, and only scored 6 points between the second and fourth quarter. So, obviously, using the running game certainly helps them keep it close if they are having a lackluster offensive performance. So, feed Pacheco, I think, is key number one to this game. Second one, I think you got to have better offensive line play overall. That certainly was a huge reason why I think Mahomes looked a little off at times against the Jets, and maybe even why he threw, 2 back-to-back picks. Because for what it's worth, looking at the PFF grades, the only one that had a remotely decent grade on the Chiefs line last week was Donovan Smith with an 82.6. So, definitely Creed Humphrey, the center down to the right tackle, were all 50 or lower in PFF grades. So,
wow.
Certainly, Jets certainly kind of had their number with rotating.
Well, I mean,
guys
again,
in
you
and out and
also got to
stunts.
realize who you're going against, so that matters.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Vikings pass rush has less prowess than the Jets, but I think certainly watching that game as an old lineman, you could tell that there was a lot. They were doing a lot of creative stunts that were throwing guys off, and I think that's what you need to do against a team like the Chiefs that you know are going to throw the ball just because of who they got, but also they don't have. It's not the same offensive line as last year. You got 2 new tackles who, aren't new guys and are coming from old systems and got their own baggage they carry with them. So I think that's kind of the blueprint to be successful against them, is to do what the Jets did. So, I mean, certainly going to be a big focal point of their success against the Vikings. And on top of that, I mean, the Vikings are they blitz the most out of any defense, like almost 60% of the time. So there's going to be some stunts and things happening. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, with that being said, they only have 11 sacks, which I mean is about middle of the pack in the league. So I think teams have also found ways to still move the ball on them. But offensive line is certainly going to be a huge component. And then I think the key to stopping Minnesota, or not letting this become a trap game where they come out and look unstoppable, is really containing the run game, which is unfortunately the one part of the Chiefs defense that has always been the poorer side of things. I mean, they relatively contained Breece Hall, decently last week, but still gave up a solid 50-yard run where it was kind of, one of those scenes where no one looked like they could tackle. But obviously, huge component or key here, because I think that Vikings only have one win, but kind of their success comes off of Madison putting up stats, which he didn't do the first 2 weeks. These last 2 weeks, still hasn't found the end zone, but he's gotten close to or over 100 yards. And you can go look at the box scores of those last 2 games. I mean, they came down to the wire. So
you got Cam Akers breathing down your neck now, so that
too. Because look, you got to know, Justin Jefferson's going to get his stats. I mean, that dude is a freak. Like, he's a freak, and the offense runs through him. So like, you just got to hope you can contain him, which
right.
Teams have obviously been able to do somewhat to still find a way to beat Minnesota. So that's why I think, to me, on the defensive side of things, the biggest key is going to be containing the running game, whether that be Madison or Akers or both. But that's going to be the biggest thing. But then lastly, this I think is a good game where you let the Mahomes-Kelsey combo kind of fully come to fruition. I think it seems like it hasn't been what it's been, past couple years. I don't think Kelsey's ever gotten over 10 targets in a game yet. Some of that's how it flows, but I also think some of that's with the injury that happened right before week 1. But Minnesota, it gives up the worst completion percentage and passing percentage when you're throwing to tight ends. So I think this is the perfect game and defense to, kind of put the gas pedal down, so to speak, on that connection and let that one, come out a little bit more in terms of productivity. But I mean, I still think it's going to be a good game. Just kind of how these last few games have gone. Chiefs offense is obviously still good, but I don't think it's as potent as it's been, this time in years past. Every game's been relatively close. So I got a 30-27 win for the Chiefs.
Fair enough. I personally think the Vikings are a little bit on the tank train, so I think y'all are safe this week.
The only thing that typically happens with like Vikings, Lions, those type of teams is their defensive lines are built differently than what we're used to in the AFC West and typically most of the other divisions that we play in.
Yeah.
Like the Browns are another good example of a D-line that's just built different. And they're built different because they're expecting, a good 40 to 50% of their season to be played in the cold. And so therefore their D-lines are built for stopping the run. and more power as opposed to speed and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But they also, like Hunter in Minnesota is one of the best pass rushers.
Yeah.
Danielle gets busy.
He gets after it.
Danielle gets busy.
Well, and the Vikings had Allen as well, right? Jared Allen.
Yeah, years ago.
But I'm saying
Everson Griffin.
Stout
guys.
Yeah, they had Zadarius Smith just last year, so they had a nice little duo there. I don't know why they broke it up, but that's
he doesn't play there anymore. Zadarius straight up was thanking the Vikings fans, and then simultaneously asked to be traded.
Yeah,
I know, right? It's brutal, right? Yeah. It's so savage. It's so freaking savage.
But the point is that it's not just that they're maybe not as good of a team against others. It's also how you match up against them, which is an interesting component in football. And that's why, the saying any given Sunday is a thing, right? Welcome to the NFL is that you could go up against a team that has one win all season and you're their second win because, just the matchups are just not in your favor because of the types of guys they have, right? Now, I'm not saying that's you and the Vikings. I'm just saying is that there may well be some of those matchups that are, we'll say, trying for your team and may really stretch some things given how they're set up and laid out and how they're built.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Last year alone, right? Like they lost to the Colts in week 2 or 3, and that was a differently built, type of defense.
Yeah.
And then
that's exactly it,
AFC
right?
West.
That's exactly it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll about do us for the show today. Again, this is going to be a very interesting week coming up. Really, I think it's going to set the tone for the remainder of the season. They always say you give it 4 or 5 games into the season to kind of see where you land. For the Chargers, you need to wait for week 6 to get that full stretch. But for the rest of us, we will get a pretty good idea in terms of where we stand at the end of this weekend. As I said, for the Broncos, the answer to that is we're just not going to do well. I'll save you all the time of watching the game. But with that in mind, we have the fantasy show with Coach and Alex coming up directly after this podcast. Stick around on Coach's channel. Go over and check that out for all the things you need to do to stack up your fantasy roster, make the right changes, and hopefully win things. Tomorrow, Captain, that's correct. We have NFL Nation Live with Violator, a Captain, and Ref Guru. Ref Guru, I was able to stop into your guys' show last week, so that was fantastic. And for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, I will actually be on Jet Central recorded that segment today. Tomorrow, with my take on the Broncos Jets. Hot take, it matched pretty much what I said today. But still go over to Jet Central and check out what I had to say, because I elaborated quite a bit on the whole Jets, Broncos, and coaching and all that other kind of stuff, as well as gave a little bit more detail in terms of offensive versus defensive line between the two teams. And ladies and gentlemen, next week you will get a lot more from Coach and the details surrounding his team. Obviously, this is just kind of, that week for him. We all have that week coming up for our own teams. And until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace!
Low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.